Hi everyone, welcome to our first YouTube live session. Uh, Recently, with our news on the move to India and our fundraise, there's been a lot of excitement and a lot of love from everybody, the media, the ecosystem, other entrepreneurs. Also, there have been a lot of questions. So, on this eve of our Republic Day, thought that who better than Sameer, my co-founder and CEO of PhonePe, to answer some of those questions.
Hi Rahul. Hello to everyone who's dialed in. Thank you for joining us. Um, let's
Let's get right into it.
Yeah.
So, Sameer, top of everybody's mind. It's great that we have moved from Singapore to India. What does it really mean, and why have we done this?
I think for the mission we are on, Rahul, you know this better than anybody. We want to solve for at scale financial inclusion, digitization, ecosystem building in the country. India is where we started, India is where we are focused, and I think we will be for the next couple of decades. And to that end, for various reasons, including being highly regulated, including wanting to list here, creating ecosystem value here, shareholder value here, I think the domicile to India for PhonePe as a business and as a company is the right answer. I'm personally very excited, as I know you are, that we've managed to do this, and many, many thanks to our shareholders and board and Walmart in particular for effecting this.
Yeah, and it's been one of the proudest moments for us. I mean, it's personally, we believe that it's one of the biggest milestones we've achieved. But it's been challenging. I mean, just to make this move hasn't been easy. And we've received so many questions from a lot of other companies, startups, entrepreneurs on wanting to do this. Is there a playbook?
I think if there's willingness, I think things will hopefully get easier from here. As again, we've talked about, there are certain obstacles today. For example, if you want to move from any other market to India as a domicile, it's treated like a capital gains event for existing investors. So you have to do a fresh mark-to-market valuation. You have to pay tax on the delta. I think it's out in the public domain now. Our investors have paid almost 8,000 crores in taxes just to allow us to come back to India. And that's a very stiff shock if the business is not yet at maturity, the business is not a few years away from an IPO. So I think it worked for us because we have very long-term investors. We are blessed. We have people like Walmart and Tencent and other balance sheet investors who can take a multi-decade view. But we have about 20 odd unicorns who've already reached out to us asking us, how do we get this changed? And I think there's engagement happening with the highest levels in government as well to make it easier for businesses to come back. Another challenge, I know you had to deal with the brunt of it. We had to convince several thousand employees that you're back to a zero vesting 1 year cliff, because the law in India says if you migrate the ESOP plan, you still have to start with a new 1 year cliff. It's very hard for startups, particularly early stage startups, to convince employees that your vesting status reverts back to zero. I think that law needs to change because it's not progressive. It's disincentivizing India-focused, India-based startups from changing domicile. Yet another example I would give you. One of the things that is very common in the startup world, pre-profit, is you're accumulating losses. And later, as the company becomes profitable, you get to actually offset the losses, which saves you some tax. And in this case, by domiciling to India, as things stand, unless the law changes by end of March, we stand to lose about $900 million of accumulated losses because it's considered a restructuring event.
Yeah.
Essentially, there's no distinction in Indian law between a restructuring where the pre and post beneficial owners are the same versus another acquisition event. And I think that's at the heart of the challenge.
And like you already mentioned, our reasons to move to India have been much stronger. But if some of these changes happen, we'll see a lot of startups deciding to actually move back to India. I think, would that be right?
I know for a fact, because we've collected the names, there are, as I said, over 20 existing unicorns in a list of 100 who've reached out and are actively looking. And some of the investors have reached out and said, if this becomes smoother, we would like to move domicile here. And I think this is testament to the fact that India as a market is becoming very, very attractive. We saw this during and post-COVID. I think a lot of entrepreneurs now finally are realizing the Indian market, which is where their brand has a relationship with the customers and the local ecosystem, will reward you better. You should be able to get better investment interest. You should be able to get more capital flowing in if you are a well-known Indian brand operating in the local market. So I'm hopeful that over the next 4 to 5 years, we'll see more and more and more Indian startups listing on the Indian bourses.
On that note, top of mind for everybody, when is the PhonePe IPO?
I think when the time is right, we had told the board we would try and list sometime in 23. We'd said that 5 years ago on media. A lot's changed in those 5 years. The payments business is doing really well, knock on wood, but our ambitions have grown. The opportunity to do things across e-commerce on ONDC and account aggregator and insurance and lending and so many other sectors have opened up. The Indian market's really opened up on the digital front. And I think learnings from the 2021 IPOs for us, one, I think it'll take a while before the Indian market can really appreciate pre-profit listings, that too at significant valuations. So I think profitability at scale will be the two markers. Third would be diversification of the business. So I think it'll take us a few years. I won't say when.
To summarize, not happening soon, but a lot of new stuff is going to launch in PhonePe this year, the next year, and the year after. So on a different note, Sameer, we started our journey as an independent company. We got acquired by Flipkart very, very early in our journey. And now recently, between the news of the domicile to India and the fundraise, there was also the separation from Flipkart. What was that about?
So when we started talking about the domicile shift for PhonePe, obviously we had to align not just our board and our direct shareholders, but Flipkart being the majority shareholder, their board, their investors, Walmart, everyone. It's a big investment in time, money, effort, all of it. And when we started then having a long-term view discussion, it became clearer that these two companies are on very, very different tracks, strategically, market-wise. And it just made a lot of sense for shareholders in the long term that they will want to unlock the value of PhonePe under Flipkart. It makes more sense to separate the two entities out. It gives us the opportunity to be able to get other investors in who may have their investment strategies more aligned to the kind of business that we are in, say fintech and payments, whereas Flipkart can attract different investors who are coming in for e-commerce and the other adjacencies that they're investing in. Could be the case that their investors, new or existing, may not want to spend so much on extending financial services and vice versa. So I think this is the right time. We've reached a certain level of maturation. Second was the fact that I think it gives us an independent path or trajectory towards our own listing, our own ability to actually sort of do things on a roadmap without having to worry about Flipkart, which is also still private, and pre-profit. Both of us are pre-profit. Both of us are growing. I think it just makes life a lot easier for everyone.
The other big news has been the fact that we are now the most valued fintech company in the country, 12 billion valuation and a new fundraise. And that is driven by our existing investors as well as a really, really reputed new investor in General Atlantic. Why General Atlantic and what are you excited about with this new fundraise?
General Atlantic, I think they've invested in financial, one, they're just blue chip, right? Like they're a really, really good global investor across sectors. So that fits sort of the pedigree of investors we love having backing us. Two, they take a long view on companies, again, something that we hold sacred, gives us the flexibility to be able to actually do zero-based at scale investments in new sectors like we're doing right now in insurance, or we're soon going to do in lending or broking or ONDC. There's very, very nascent sectors. We need partners who can look at it for 8, 10, 15 years. But more specifically, I think that the team that's been focused on India has invested in the financial services sector and the banking sector. And I think they've tasted success, which makes them bullish on investing further in companies like PhonePe. There's a lot of meeting of the minds. They understand what we're trying to do intimately well. They're tracking the ecosystem. So I think just easy alignment at several levels within the fund. Obviously excited to have them anchor the round. We wanted a credible investor. We needed a credible investor to anchor the round, to peg the valuation, because again, we had to pay capital gains against it. We have to complete the fundraise against it. So it's great to have GN there. Somewhat excited about the 12 valuation. Don't like chasing valuations, never have. I know you're grimacing, I know I am too. It's nice to have, but it's not over till the fat lady sings, and the fat lady stops singing when you have like 3 years of public listing and the market's sort of rewarding you for good behavior. This is very early.
No, and I'm also extremely excited to continue to have Walmart as a strategic investor in us, majority investor, and then somebody like General Atlantic, and with this fundraise. The Indian ambition, NPCI, RBI, and the entire ecosystem, taking this to 1 billion transactions a day from the close to 500 million, want to play a very, very important part in that, investing much more into actually just scaling payments out with a whole bunch of new initiatives that are coming on UPI itself, to enter into these new products, be it lending on the merchant side, lending on the consumer side, a lot of new open API initiatives, right? That is like account aggregator, ONDC. I think India is just going to explode on the digital front, and with the kind of patient capital backing us, we'd love to actually play a small and move over time a large part in making that happen. So Sameer, with the fundraise, who's next? You just said that General Atlantic is anchoring the round. A lot of conversation of who else is coming into this round. Do you want to share anything?
So I think before that, let's take a step back and thank the people who have come into this round already. QIA, Qatar Sovereign Fund, Microsoft, Tencent staying on. There's a couple of smaller hedge funds. There's Tiger coming in. There's a lot of high quality names on that cap table. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate the long-term support we are seeing. I won't comment on the new investors. We have to leave something for the breaking news. I'm going to flip this back to you then. We already have a lot of capital, thanks to all these investors. ONDC shopping. We have a broking license. We have an account aggregator license now. We're talking about getting into lending. There's a B2B PG that's launched here in insurance. What are you most excited about and why?
Everything actually. Like I feel like a kid in a candy store. I'm extremely excited about scaling payments further. Extremely excited about making further investments in our data centers. We have 5 locations that we operate out of, and we need to get to more locations. Super excited about financial services, specifically insurance. I think given the level of penetration in the country and the massive social impact just getting better and deeper distribution on insurance can have on the country, extremely excited. Very difficult to actually choose one, but over the next couple of years, I think we're going to genuinely transform from being a very large payments platform to payments and financial services and beyond, and that's what excites me. On that note, thank you so much for joining us on our first YouTube live session. Hoping to do many more of these and probably continue to actually stay connected and stay more relevant and answer more questions.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Rahul. This was fun. We'll do this again. Thanks.
Thank you.